Getting a mining job. How not to have a bad experience. Mining 101. Welcome to the podcast about getting into the mining industry. And in our first episode today, I just want to welcome everybody to the podcast and give you a little bit of an idea of why I'm doing this and the information that I've got to share to you. So one of the reasons that I'm doing this is I come from the industry. So I started as an underground nipper at the end of 94, got a WA shift boss ticket in 2007, and unfortunately in 2016 got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and it limits what I can do, unfortunately, because otherwise I would be quite happily out on a mine site somewhere doing what I've been trained to do. So that leaves me with a lot of time on my hands. And for those that seen the YouTube channel Australian Mining for New Starters, I post videos on there as well, which we're going to have a look at. But the real reason that I want to do this podcast is that I constantly see people set up to fail. And one of the reasons why I said, how not to have a bad experience is that I often think of the South Park episode where the boys go skiing and they're getting taught to ski, and the ski instructor tells them, if you French fry when you should pizza, you're going to have a bad time. And that's what I constantly see around the place with people trying to get into the industry. I see a lot of people making very poor decisions that are going to have a bad time, unfortunately. So this is why I wanted to do this podcast, was just to point out all the areas of the industry and why people have a bad time getting into the industry. Basically because, they don't really understand what's going on. And just as a good faith measure, I'm going to tell you the secret to getting into the industry right here, right now. And all the other episodes, I will tell you it again and again, and the episodes will hopefully reinforce it. But the issue getting in is all about understanding the issues that the employers have specific to mining. And the biggest issue that all the employers have is that it's really easy to teach you how to do the job. It's not hard to teach you how to do any of the physical jobs that are required as the entry-level people in mining. What takes all the time and what everybody struggles with is teaching that person enough about how the mine works so they can be left alone to do the job by themselves. So this is the key thing that people don't get. You need to be able to be left alone by yourself to do the job before you are safe in that job. If you can't be left alone by yourself to do that job safely by yourself, then you don't have a job. And that's why there is so much turnover, especially in the area that I come from, Hard Rock Underground. And like I said, I'm going to specifically talk about that from my experience about what's happened in the industry for a couple of reasons. Main reason is that that's where the majority of the new starter jobs are these days, is in the Hard Rock Underground roles. And the reason is that it's where the money is as well. If you want to get paid big dollars, that's where the money is underground. So like I was saying, one of the main reasons that I'm doing this podcast is to get into why people fail. And the main reason is that, you've got to know enough about the mine so you can be left alone by yourself to do the job by yourself. That's the secret to the employment, is if you can actually talk to the employer and show the employer that you know how their mine works, then you've generally got something to offer them. So education's the key. And at the moment, for those listening in on the podcast, I'm showing some of the job hunt videos and the videos on the screen that I've done on the Australian Mining for New Starters YouTube channel, and you only have to go to one of those videos and have a look, and you'll see a link to some training that you can do that will teach you all about how a mine works so you can actually hold a conversation with the foreman in the interview. But this isn't about that. This is about more talking about knowing the odds about getting in. So like I said, with Hard Rock Underground, you can imagine all the people that try and get in and fail. Now you can imagine that you get yourself a Hard Rock Underground job. Now, what people really don't like being told is that when you get that Hard Rock Underground job, 3 in 5 people fail in the first 6 months because they just can't get their head around how the mine works and they can't pick things up quick enough. Now, the other thing that nobody likes to talk about, and like I said, I've been in the industry for a very long time, so I've seen these numbers come up often because they do a lot of studies, they spend a lot of money on the all this, investigating what goes wrong, because they spend a bunch of money on new starters. And so unfortunately only 2 in 10 are left in the industry after 2 years. So there's a huge turnover rate of people, and that's why there's so many jobs around. And if you want to see how many jobs there are around, you just have to type underground into Seek. And for those that are listening in, I've just typed underground into Seek and given it a spin, and there's 3,617 jobs come up. And if I scroll down, you're looking at dump truck operator in Goldfields, entry-level underground truck operator Northern Star, entry-level underground diamond driller off-sider Barminco, entry-level truck driver underground miner Aries Resources, another one for Aries, another one for Goldfields, another one for a gold mine in New South Wales, another one for a joint venture in Tasmania, another one for a joint venture in WA, another one for Goldfields. There's just jobs everywhere, and it's all about giving them what they want. And the issue that all these employers have, and the reason why there is so many of these jobs around, like I said, is that they turn over 3 out of 5 of their new starters. They don't like doing it. I mean, it costs you don't get any change of between 20 and 30 grand for a new starter when you bring them on. So if you are only getting 2 people succeeding out of 5 and it's costing you 30 grand per person, then the reality is it's costing you 75 grand for each successful candidate that you come through. And that's why employers don't like hiring new starters on mines. They want experienced people. That's why all the ads ask for experience. When they're asking for experience, they're not asking for the practical truck driving experience or whatever. They're asking for your mining knowledge so they can throw you in the deep end. They often won't care if you haven't driven that particular bit of machinery that they want you to drive on site. All they're interested in is if you've done something similar on another site and you know the rules, you know how it all works, you're able to be thrown in the deep end. That's what the employers are after. And knowing the odds going in makes a huge difference to which direction that you go into and how you approach it all. Because a lot of people, they're just being set up to fail. And how are they being set up to fail? They're being set up to fail in a whole different range of ways, from going and getting a bunch of tickets that the employers can't use, to getting overcomplicated resumes done by people that have got no idea about mining and that claim to have ideas about mining, to just relocating or following the media's advice and going for a coal and iron ore job. There must be thousands of people applying for the latest BHP iron ore roles over here in WA. And the only problem with that is BHP's going driverless with all their iron ore mines, or as many of them as they can. So what you are being recruited into is a lower paid tiered job. It doesn't pay anywhere near as good as what it used to. It really, from what I've been told, it's around the $80,000 a year package, and then you'll be lucky to make 100 once the training's completed. Now, that's extremely low compared to what you can make in other areas of the industry, and extremely low compared to what iron ore used to pay years ago. We are going to do a podcast about what's gone on with the wages around the place, but at the moment I just want to do a light brush over of how the industry works, just so you can get an idea straight away of what we're going to talk about in future episodes, and hopefully glean a little bit of information so you can move on with what you want to do right now. But yeah, there's thousands of people applying for those BHP jobs, and there'd only be 36 to 72 jobs available, probably, if that. And the reason that they don't need a lot of people is because they're making it all driverless and they're replacing everybody. And that's one of the big things that you need to understand about the industry. There's only a couple of places in the industry that still pays really good money. That's on the surface exploration, and it's hard rock underground. Everywhere else, the employers have been on a rampant campaign to either go driverless or to replace or to introduce new workplace agreements and workplace structures to bring the wages back in line. A lot of the employers back in the day, they got smashed with wages, so much so that they've come at it really hard to try and reduce their wages, and there's a whole heap of people in middle management that have nailed their nailed their colours to the mast over the fact that they're going to reduce wages by going driverless. And it's not just iron ore over this side of the country, it's coal over the other side of the country as well that's going driverless. Apparently, the BHP Mitsubishi Alliance has signed a contract for 500 to convert 500 trucks to driverless with Komatsu. So that's the way that's going. And again, if you spend all this time looking into coal and iron ore, and then you get there and it's not really a job, and you only last, or the job gets pulled out from underneath you, which is happening to a lot of people at the moment, as things are rationalising throughout the industry, or you get told there is a job and there's not a job, or you only get it for 12 months. What do you do after you've got your 12 months coal mining experience under your belt? You can't really transfer it anywhere else. That's the other thing about the industry that people don't understand. They think that they can jump from a utility job to a production mining job. It doesn't work like that. You get taught how to do something in the mining industry a very specific way, and those skills you can move from one site to another, but you can't move them across the skill paths. So if you've been taught how to coal mine, that's not the same as the hard rock underground mining that I've been taught how to do. So if you go from coal mining to hard rock underground, you've got to go right back to the start and start again, which means a lot of people don't do it. It's the other thing that nobody tells you as well, is that there's no jumping in the middle. With all these jobs and all these career paths, everybody wants you to start at the bottom and work your way up, which isn't really an issue, because there's a lot of opportunity around the place, so you can move your way up through the ranks quite quickly. But, a lot of people go in thinking that they're going to be the jumbo operator, or they're going to be a digger operator or something like that. And, those jobs are the top level jobs. They're the ones that everybody, you have to spend your time on the crew and work your way through to the crew to get there. It's just these sort of things keep getting perpetuated out there in social media. And what I find is a lot of people that run pages and have got services that they offer around the place to try and help people get into the mining industry actually don't have any background in the mining industry, or they have very limited background in the mining industry and they don't really understand how it works. And that's why most people that are trying to get into the mining industry unfortunately have a bad experience. And that's what this is all about, is trying to help people not to have a bad experience. So some of the topics that we're going to talk about in future episodes, we're going to talk about mental health in mining. We're going to talk about some preventative maintenance with that. We're going to talk about where the money is and where it isn't. I touched on that briefly before. We're going to talk about where the long-term careers are. So, the difference between going into the hard rock side of the industry, oil and gas, coal, what does it all mean? What's the likelihood of it all succeeding? So we're going to go into that. We're going to go into who gets to call themselves a miner. This is a really important one, because a lot of people jump onto social media and tell everybody that they're a miner, and they're really the security guard that works on the front gate, or the utility worker that makes the bed. They're not really the miner, and they're just giving people second-hand knowledge that they can't really use and isn't applicable to getting a job. And there's not too many people that will actually refer to themselves as a miner that actually work in the mine, and so we'll go through all that. So if somebody calls themselves a miner, if they're not working on an air leg, they're probably not a miner, and they're probably giving you bad advice. So we'll talk about contractors, shutdown and civil work, and we'll talk about utility work and the poaching rules. And I'm sure there's lots of other things that will get brought up along the way that we'll do episodes about as well. But for this first episode, I just wanted to talk to people about their odds of getting in and trying not to set yourself up for failure. We want you to have a good experience, not a bad experience. But like I said, like the kids being taught how to ski on South Park, the majority of people I have a look around are going to have a bad experience. They're going to have a bad time, unfortunately. And that's, the thing that's most frustrating about it all is that it's 9 times out of 10, it's got nothing to do with the person actually doing the research. They're doing it, they're asking questions in genuine good faith, but they're getting crap answers back. And, one of the big ones is that, people get told to do the S11. The S11 is only for coal and only for Queensland. You can't use it on a hard rock underground mine site anywhere in the country. It's just not applicable at all. They have to use a different set of standards. They have to do their own on-site ticketing and on-site procedures. Again, we're going to talk about this in length in one of the episodes coming up. If you want to have a look at any of this information I'm talking about, you can jump over to our YouTube channel and have a look at the videos that I've already done. It covers a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about in the podcast. So if you want to get ahead of it all, you can have a look at all that. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, the secret to getting a mining job is to give the employer what they want and go where they have to hire new starters. At the moment, the easiest place to get a job is in Kalgoorlie or Mount Isa or Cobar or one of the big mining towns. But don't just go there without educating yourself. Educate yourself first, then head there, because that's going to give you the best result. Because if you don't educate yourself, the chances of you making it are probably less than 35%. And that's not just, that's just the industry average. It is what it is. They turn over a bunch of new starters because people go into it with rose-colored glasses. And that's why so many people have a bad experience. I hope that clears that up with knowing the odds. Once people think it's hard to get the job, but once you do get the job, there's a lot of turnover. And like I said, after 2 years, it's only 2 in 10 that are still there after 2 years. It's a really high turnover rate, but it's one of those industries that it's not for everybody for a variety of different reasons. I've had family members and everything that have pulled the pin after 2 years. I've got other family members that have been in it for 20 years. It's just a matter of taste and, what you can put up with and, what your goals are and where you want to move to. But the thing is, you need to understand what the odds are to start with. If you're going to succeed in this, you need to understand how it all works before you jump into it with both feet. Because if you don't understand how it all works before you jump into it with both feet, then you're probably going to have a bad experience. And that's Mining 101.